The film opens with a high-stakes armored truck heist. Two security guards tasked with transporting cash find their routine route abruptly interrupted by what appears to be a construction crew. But as soon as the truck stops, the workers reveal their true intentions, pulling out firearms and explosives. Chaos erupts. Both guards are executed, and several bystanders caught in the crossfire meet the same fate. The massacre sends shockwaves through Fortico security, pushing the company to tighten its protocols in a desperate attempt to prevent another such tragedy. 5 months later, a new recruit named Patrick Hill joins Fortico as a security guard. During his orientation, his supervisor, Terry, bluntly reminds him of the devastating heist and warns that the perpetrators remain at large. It's a stark introduction to the dangers of the job, setting the tone for what's to come. Patrick, soon nicknamed H, begins his training under the watchful eye of a seasoned guard named Bullet. His initial performance is less than impressive. He barely clears the qualification tests, managing just the minimum required score of 70%. On the shooting range, his shots stray far from the center, and during vehicle maneuvering drills, he clumsily backs into a stack of crates. Despite the shaky start, H pushes on, clearly driven by something deeper. In the locker room, Bullet introduces H to the rest of the team. The group quickly sizes him up, sensing the fresh blood. Sweet Boy, a loudmouthed, sharp-tongued guard, wastes no time testing H's resolve, launching into a verbal sparring match. Dana, the only female guard on the team, seems quietly intrigued by the newcomer's reserved demeanor. Meanwhile, Sticky John, clearly bitter about losing his spot to H, greets him with barely concealed disdain. H's first shift pairs him with Bullet and Sweet Boy for a routine cash pickup. Before they roll out, Bullet sets the tone, reminding H that in their line of work, they're predators, not prey. During the drive, Sweet Boy gets unusually chatty, sharing a grim twist of fate. He reveals that he was originally scheduled to be on the truck attacked 5 months ago but called in sick that day. His alibi? He was at his mother's house, a decision that likely saved his life. The first collection goes smoothly. Back at the depot, H gets his first glimpse of the facility's tight security setup. Thick gates, metal detectors, and a vigilant Sticky John watching over the entrance. At the end of the day, the guards follow a strict routine, removing their ID badges and placing them on a board, a small but significant ritual. That evening, the team heads to a local bar to unwind. Bullet extends an invitation to H, who lingers for a moment, discreetly noting the ID badges of his new colleagues. At the bar, the mood sours when the guards egg Sticky John into picking a fight with H, still bitter over losing his spot. H, however, handles the confrontation with a calm precision, diffusing the situation without breaking a sweat. To the surprise of the others, he even hands John some cash, suggesting he buy himself a drink and cool off. Embarrassed but unwilling to escalate further, Sticky John retreats into the shadows, his pride clearly wounded. Bullet watches the exchange with a smirk, clearly entertained, and dryly dubs H a social wizard. The tone shifts dramatically during their next shift. Bullet steps out to handle a small $10,000 pickup but fails to return. Sweet Boy's attempts to reach him over the radio are met with nothing but static, until a distorted, threatening voice cuts through. Bullet has been taken hostage. Sweet Boy panics, urging H to head back to the depot, reasoning that the robbers won't kill Bullet over such a small amount. But H stands firm, declaring that they're not leaving without their colleague. His calm yet unyielding tone steadies Sweet Boy's nerves, and they follow the robbers' instructions. The truck is directed to an isolated, abandoned lot. As they pull in, a masked figure emerges from a nearby vehicle, dragging Bullet at gunpoint. Another robber barks orders, demanding that H and Sweet Boy unload the cash into the trunk. The tension is palpable, the stakes impossibly high. Sweet Boy, trembling, whispers that the robbers will kill them if they resist. Ignoring him, H calmly heads to the back of the truck, methodically tossing the bags of cash one by one. Deliberately, he throws one bag off to the side, As the distracted robber bends down to grab the misplaced bag, H seizes the opportunity. He draws his weapon and drops the robber instantly, following up with a shot that takes down the one holding Bullet. Chaos erupts as a fierce firefight breaks out, bullets ricocheting off the metal frames of nearby vehicles. In the chaos, one of the robbers manages to flee. Without hesitation, H charges after the escaping man, leaving Bullet and Sweet Boy to recover in the aftermath. He tracks the fleeing robber into a nearby crumbling warehouse. Inside, H corners his target in a dark, debris-strewn hallway. He demands to know who sent him, but the robber, defiant to the end, hurls taunts and insults, refusing to cooperate. Unfazed, H knocks the man unconscious with a single brutal strike. Bullet and Sweet Boy catch up, still breathless and wide-eyed from the ordeal. H then turns his attention to the masked bodies of the fallen robbers. One by one, he rips off their masks. Later, 2 FBI agents arrive on the scene, their expressions a mix of intrigue and suspicion. They confront H about his near-perfect accuracy during the shootout, noting the stark difference from his barely passing range scores on record. H responds coolly, attributing his precision to adrenaline and the clarity that comes in life-or-death moments. One of the agents slides a grainy surveillance photo across the table, an image of a man gunning down 3 victims in a previous heist. H studies the blurry figure, his face unreadable, before calmly denying any recognition. In a private debrief, the FBI agents report their suspicions to their superior, Agent King. They believe H might be the same individual they've been tracking for over 2 decades. King, however, brushes off their concerns, referring to H as merely a painter. Following the violent incident, Terry advises H to take a month-long break from field operations and undergo mandatory psychological evaluations as per company policy. But Fortico's upper management sees things differently. Viewing H's decisive actions as a boost to the company's reputation, they choose to reward him with a promotion instead. Behind the scenes, H begins a covert investigation. He hires an assistant to quietly compile detailed personal files on all Fortico employees. These dossiers include everything from family photos and personnel records to the autopsy reports of the guards killed in the original heist. 3 months later, while on a routine collection run with Bullet, their truck is ambushed by another crew of armed robbers. The attackers spray black paint across the windows and mirrors, instantly cutting off visibility. Bullet sends out a red code alert, but the assault escalates quickly. The robbers use tools to breach the vehicle, forcing the guards out. Bullet collapses, coughing in the chaos, while H steps out with eerie composure. As the robbers approach and bark commands for him to lie down, the moment they get a clear look at H's face, they freeze, then retreat without a word. Back at Fortico, Terry is dumbfounded by the robbers' reaction. He's increasingly impressed by H's ability to handle volatile situations. The company boss, as enigmatic as ever, simply tells Terry to keep showcasing their best guy. Meanwhile, in a quieter moment, Bullet confides in a colleague. There's something about H, he says, something not quite human. He calls him a dark spirit. H's personal life also begins to shift. Dana, breaking through the wall between them, confesses her feelings. They spend the night together at her place. Later that night, H confronts Dana at gunpoint. His tone is cold, his eyes calculating. He demands an explanation about a stash of hidden money he discovered in her possession. Suspecting her of being a courier or part of a deeper criminal operation, he presses her for answers. Dana, visibly terrified, denies any organized involvement. She insists she took the money during one of her assignments and acted alone. H doesn't back down. He reveals that he's already dug into her contacts, including information about her family, and warns her not to hold anything back. The air between them tightens with tension as Dana continues to plead her innocence, her fear as real as his suspicion. The story then rewinds 5 months, offering a glimpse into a very different chapter of H's life. He's seen spending a quiet day with his son Dougie, a rare and peaceful moment far removed from the violence that defines his world. Their calm is abruptly shattered when Mike, one of H's trusted associates, and, unbeknownst to Dougie, a participant in a recent heist, calls with an urgent request. A crew member has unexpectedly dropped out, and they need someone near H's location to cover a simple surveillance task. All H has to do is watch a Fortico truck as it exits the depot and report whether it turns left or right. Reluctantly, H agrees. On the way to the location, he spots a food truck parked near the gate and uses it as a convenient cover. Claiming he's hungry, he parks and tells Dougie to stay in the car while he grabs some burritos. From the food truck, H watches as the Fortico vehicle turns right. He passes the information to Mike without suspecting what's about to unfold. Just down the road, a different crew of robbers, posing as construction workers, ambushes the truck. One of the robbers notices Dougie in the car and orders the boy out. Panicked, Dougie calls for his father, but H, still distracted on the phone, doesn't hear him. Dougie gets out and lies on the ground. But then, in a tragic misstep, he turns his head at the worst possible moment and sees the robber pull off his mask. Without hesitation, the robber kills the guards. Then, Dougie. By the time H realizes what's happening, it's too late. He sprints back to the car just in time to witness his son's execution. Enraged and broken, he charges at the shooter but is gunned down before he can make contact. 3 weeks later, H wakes up in a hospital, battered and hollow. The news of Dougie's death hits him like a second bullet, but the pain deepens when Dougie's mother visits. She blames H entirely, calling him cold and accusing him of failing to protect their son. Her words cut deeper than any wound. Driven by grief and a burning need for revenge, H turns to the only person he trusts, FBI agent King. Though King's resources are limited, he provides H with a list of potential suspects from the criminal underground. With Mike and their crew, H begins a brutal campaign, systematically hunting down targets one by one. But despite the blood spilled and trails followed, the man who killed Dougie remains out of reach. Eventually, Mike suggests a new strategy. H agrees and announces he'll be returning to London temporarily. Before leaving, he instructs his assistant to construct a false identity. Patrick Hill, complete, with a flawless but fabricated security record. Under this alias, H infiltrates Fortico security, planting himself inside the company to uncover the truth and find the man responsible for Dougie's murder. At the same time, a separate story begins to take shape, one that will soon intersect with H's path. Months earlier, 6 military veterans, disillusioned and struggling to stay afloat financially, come together under the leadership of their former sergeant, Jackson. Driven by mutual frustration and financial desperation, the group of 6 war veterans bands together to pull off a bold scheme. Under Jan's urging, the most ambitious among them, they begin targeting wealthy Middle Eastern residents. At first, the robberies yield only a few $100,000, but the quick returns fuel bigger ambitions. While Jackson maintains leadership, Jan begins to see himself as more than just a follower. He wants to be an equal, maybe even take control. As the cash piles up, the crew grows tired of dealing with middlemen to launder the money. Jackson proposes a more direct method: robbing armored trucks. All they need is one insider. No brokers, no splitting with outsiders, just 7 clean shares. The new plan proves effective. The heists now bring in millions. But Jackson warns everyone to keep a low profile. No quitting day jobs, no sudden lifestyle changes. Jan naturally ignores every warning. He flaunts his wealth and grows increasingly reckless, drawing unnecessary attention. At Jackson's birthday gathering, the group agrees to one last job: a high-value Fortico truck carrying a massive payload. They plan every step meticulously, disguising themselves as construction workers to stay under the radar. On the day of the robbery, they take their positions. They have no idea that H is parked just meters away, with his son Dougie sitting quietly inside the car. Jackson notices the parked vehicle but sees no threat, instructing the team to keep an eye on it. The crew executes the plan, forcing the guards from the truck while Jan keeps one at gunpoint. Meanwhile, the rest rush to secure the cash. Everything seems to go according to plan until one guard reaches for his weapon. Jan acts instantly, ripping off the man's mask and shooting him. Without pause, he turns the gun on the second guard and kills him too. But Dougie, lying frozen on the pavement, has seen everything. Jan notices. Without hesitation, he turns and shoots the boy. The team stands in stunned silence. They spot H sprinting toward them. But Jan, always brutal, fires directly into H's chest, locking eyes with him as he drops. Months later, the crew reunites. The millions they made weren't enough. Greed still drives them. Jackson, though still in charge, lashes out at Jan for nearly ruining everything. Then he lays out their biggest and final move, robbing Fortico's entire fleet on Black Friday, when over $150 million is scheduled for transit. The stakes are high, but the payout would make them all untouchable, if they can pull it off. At Fortico's depot, Terry gathers the guards and emphasizes the increased security protocols for Black Friday. Everyone is told to stay alert, but inside the crew, pressure is building. Jackson is losing patience with Jan's recklessness. His impulsive spending is already making noise, and Jackson warns him if he doesn't pull back, he'll bring them all down. On the day of the heist, Bullet is partnered with H for their shift. After completing their final run, Bullet finally confesses the truth. He's the insider, the one who helped orchestrate the robbery months ago that left 3 people dead, including Dougie. The guards were always meant to die, he says coldly. Dougie's death, however, was a tragic accident. H is stunned. Bullet goes further, admitting he disarmed him, emptied his weapon before the ambush. He warns H that the crew is planning to hit the depot that very day and advises him to play along if he wants to survive. The weight of the betrayal sinks in, and H silently prepares for what's coming. Bullet disables the truck's internal cameras and drives it straight to the depot, where Jackson and his crew lie in wait. As the teams regroup, one of the robbers strikes H across the face, making it clear he's expected to cooperate. Jan and 3 others climb into the armored truck. Jackson follows behind in a separate vehicle with another man. As they reach the depot and the gates swing open, the assault begins. Armed men spill out, quickly taking control of the grounds. Terry, a young boy, and H are taken hostage. Even Bullet, despite being part of the plan, is publicly restrained to keep up appearances. At the same time, Dana heads toward another truck. Stewart, one of the guards, distracts her with a joke and a video. Inside the depot, the robbers restrain H and press a gun to Bullet's head, demanding that the vault be opened. Sticky John triggers the alarm. Gunfire erupts as depot guards engage the attackers. Amid the chaos, explosives are placed on the vault door. The firefight intensifies. Thanks to body armor, the robbers avoid serious injuries, though one of them is hit critically. When the charges blow, the blast rips through the vault entrance, clearing the way for Jackson's crew and their vehicle to push inside. With control secured, Jackson gives the order to spread out and lock down the facility. Outside, police cruisers arrive, the first wave before SWAT. The crew works against the clock, stuffing cash into bags with only minutes to spare. Most of the guards are killed during the assault, but Dana, Stewart, and Shirley manage to hide in the rear of an armored truck. Stewart urges them to stay put and wait for backup, but Shirley refuses to sit still. She opens fire, hitting one of the robbers and momentarily throwing the crew off balance. H seizes the moment. He draws a hidden pistol and shoots a nearby robber in the leg. Then, using a concealed blade, he cuts through his restraints. He rushes to free Terry and the boy. When the boy looks to him for direction, H simply tells them, "Make your own call." They choose to flee, slipping through the depot's rear exit while H gears up in the uniform of a fallen robber. Shirley's resistance ends violently. She's gunned down during the exchange, but Dana and Stewart arm themselves and charge into the fight. H moves with surgical precision. He pulls the helmet off one of the masked attackers, confirms the identity, and takes them out. The rest of the crew spots what's happening. A brutal shootout erupts, with H now fully engaged in taking them down from within. In the thick of the gunfight, H faces off against a robber clad in full tactical armor. The fight turns brutal. Fists, elbows, sheer force. H tries to fire his pistol, but it clicks empty. Without hesitating, he draws a knife and drives it into his opponent, bringing him down. Elsewhere, Jackson orders the remaining crew to fall back with the cash. Bullet makes his move. He approaches Dana and Stewart, pretending to be an ally. Stewart hands him a weapon. Bullet wastes no time. He guns down both Dana and Stewart without remorse. H, still in the chaos, takes out 2 more robbers before Bullet catches him off guard and shoots him, leaving him wounded. But Bullet isn't done. He turns his attention to the boy. Coldly, deliberately, he calls out and pulls the trigger. When the smoke clears, only 3 members of the crew remain: Jackson, Jan, and Bullet. They rush to the final phase of the plan, slipping into the garage to avoid the oncoming police response. As Bullet and Jan load the cash onto a cart for the elevator, Jackson, slumped and wounded in the truck, quietly raises his weapon. His aim is locked on January, but Jan is faster. Sensing the threat, he slits Jackson's throat in one clean motion. Turning to Bullet, he coolly lies, says Jackson died from his injuries. As they disappear into a concealed tunnel, they emerge on the other side where a getaway car waits. As they load the last bags into the trunk, Bullet, watching Jan closely, starts weighing his options. But Jan is always one step ahead. He draws his weapon without pause and shoots Bullet dead. Alone now, Jan gets in the car, takes the money, and vanishes. Later, Jan lounges in his apartment, drink in hand, savoring the high of survival. His peace is broken by a strange ringing. He follows the sound to a phone hidden inside one of the money bags. Then movement in the shadows. H steps forward. Jan tries to cover his shock, offering a share of the money in a weak attempt to negotiate. H doesn't reply. Instead, he tosses a document at Jan. It's Dougie's autopsy report. Jan reads, 4 bullets, liver, lungs, spleen, heart. The reality of what he's done slams into him. H raises his gun. 1 shot, then another, then 2 more. Each bullet lands exactly where Dougie's did. Jan drops to the floor. H limps out of the apartment. Outside, Agent King is waiting. He doesn't ask questions, just one glance. Is it done? H nods without a word and disappears into the night. The debt is paid.